Hey everybody, it's Never, and today I've got a real treat for you. I'm going to show you the iterative history of my UI in World of Warcraft. So let's get cracking. Oh, that's not the right thing. I wanted to do this. Let's get cracking! Alright, so here we started out quite a while back. This was the first time I'd ever really done anything with my UI from the default. When I first started playing, and I was playing in Alliance way back in like 2005, I had like some of those old things. I forget what they were called, but there was like, what was that one? It was started with a D or something, but you could like move everything around and be really precise with it, and that was pretty cool. But this was just really basic. I started using a bar mod so I could have a lot more buttons and cleaned up some of this stuff. I don't know why, it looks terrible, but that's what I did, and it wasn't even widescreen or anything. But this was circa 2006, if I remember right. That's how it went. So then, a little later, I started getting, this is when I moved stuff around. I had my target up on top and my player frame on the bottom, and that worked for a while, and I was playing around with a lot of different characters, just seeing what was interesting. But as you can see, I had already had my druid started, but hadn't fully made my mind up on stuff yet. Then this was a paladin I was leveling. This is actually my first character I ever got to max level. It was in Burning Crusade. I never got to max level in vanilla because I had no idea what I was doing. But this is it's farther along. Target's on the bottom now, a little more cleaned up with the bars. The next one, it got even more cleaned up. I realized I didn't need the buttons as big, and this is when I started this thing that I kept for a while where I wanted to have a separate combat log, because for some reason it was really cool to see your combat log around that time. I don't know why. After this, this is when I started starting to pay attention to my druid a little bit more, and started putting everything down on that little panel in the bottom, and I really liked the nice clean look of everything else up there. And then this was a warlock I played around with after I got sick of my paladin. This was my second max level character, and I still had party frames up there, and it was just evolving a little bit. I had some custom bar textures and started to actually make some macros with things so I could choose. I was already choosing what my icons would be for stuff way back here because I just don't like some of the default icons, but some of them are really good, so I wanted to pick. And I had like Titan panel and stuff, or that was whatever the other one was. It wasn't Titan panel, it was man, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, it was good, but it stopped being updated. So then this is the first UI I really started to actually do stuff with. And you can see I did some stuff really badly, but all along the middle of the screen there's all of this blah from scrolling battle text. And it still had the combat log over on the right there. I don't know why, but I had my pet on one side, my player frame on the left there, and my target in the middle, and dots appearing above the target. It was a lot cleaner. I had the panels in the background that faded away with the text, and it looked pretty good, but it wasn't the best thing ever. This was when I really started to get crazy with some of the artwork, and got some borders around all of my buttons and started to really make it look pretty. And then this iteration was a really crazy one where I had these little wireframe things that were putting all the stuff together, and then my party members and my target and self would actually show up with a full 3D model, and that cost me like 25% of my frame rate at the time, but it was just so cool looking I had to stick with it for a little while. But this was the first UI I felt like I really did something neat with. The next one was a different version of that. I took away the things that showed the model of everything I was targeting and got some frame rate back, which was needed at the time, and cleaned it up a little more, and stacked the target frame so that I could compare my health with the health of my target very quickly at a glance, instead of having to look at one and then look at the other to see where my health was in comparison to it, to know whether or not it would likely kill me before I'd kill it. And I got a cool tooltip thing at some point. This one started to get a little more minimal, and this is when I really started focusing on my druid. I got my Netherwing Drake on my Warlock and then decided I was just, I was done cheating on my mains and I just made my Druid my main. And then this one is the first iteration of what has become my UI as it is today. This is the first time I really got the basic idea that I could work with something that was asymmetrical. And there is a bit of a understandable transition from one to the other, but it was the first time that I felt like the UI was really solid and going in the right direction. This was another iteration of it, started to get a little more choicey on my artwork, and it fit together a little nicer with the visuals, but it still looks kind of weird because the borders on things don't match, and it's just still not there yet. Finally, another iteration of it with a little bit better textures on some things and better placement of things like quest log and whatnot. Not as messy either. And then this one here, that person's name is Vaya con Dios, which just makes me so happy. This one here, I don't even know why this one's up here, because it's like the same as the last one. So I don't know. This one is more similar to what I have now with the order that things are, but it's still kind of messy. It's when I started looking at where things are versus where my eyes go and paying attention to how things line up that way. This one has obviously stacked targets, which I did for quite a while, but it's got things separated a little more. I minimized the amount of extra information that's just sitting there for no reason and started to keep it with just the stuff you need to see and pay attention to, and made my combat text move around the middle of the screen instead of through it so I can actually see what's going on. This is another slight iteration on that. Stuff's getting more compact, more stuck together in one, and starting to look a little nicer as far as a silhouette goes, which is a pretty big concept in Blizzard's art style, is what the silhouette of things look like, and I guess I started to figure that out here. This one was the first time that it started to, I said this before, but this was a really big step in really looking like what I have today, with the separated target and player frame, and I think I went back to stacking them again a little later, but this was a good iteration on that. This one is where I started to get consistent borders with everything, and it really began looking nice, and this was during my favorite event the game has ever done, which was the zombie infestation. And I really think, please send Blizzard emails about this every 5 minutes, that there should be a holiday once a year where we get this event back for a week. I would love that so much. So this one, I stacked the frames again and started to try and compact everything so that it would look really nice, but you can see I've got my buffs on the bottom like that, and it's really starting to come together and look pretty refined. But you can see at this point it's like 2008, 2009, so it's been a couple of years of iterating on this UI. This one was the first one. This is when I had transferred to an Alliance server to play with a buddy of mine in between guilds, and this is the first time I really got everything and loved the way that it looked. This whole thing with the faded dark borders around everything that I still have today, and the buttons and everything. It looked really nice, but the buttons being in the way there didn't quite work as well as I wanted it to, and I couldn't see all the keys that I needed for what I was doing with my speed pad, as I explained in the other video. But I really liked this one, and this is the first time I felt like, wow, my UI looks great. This one was not as pretty as the last one, but more functional, and you can see I added the bottom row of action bars, and then I still had separate layouts for party and raid frames, but I think it's like the next one or the one after that when it starts to really look right. So here, this is the way I had it for quite a while during raids in Icecrown, where I had the raid frames and party frames that would just stack up down there, and I would show party pets or raid pets if it was a small enough raid. And this one it felt really solid and really nice, and this is when I was actually proud to start showing it off to people a little bit. And here we go, it's a cleaner version of the same thing. You can see now I've started paying attention to how readable stuff is instead of just what the silhouette looks like. And here's somebody spamming me about violation of currency trading, which was not true at all. And this is also me asking the Lich King for Christmas presents, because I just really didn't care what he was there to do. And finally, we've got an even cleaner version of the same thing, smaller stuff, compacted down during Cataclysm, and also there was a gazelle stuck in that tree. This was very similar to what I had for a long time, and it's got the raid and party frames almost exactly how I have them today. Things are a little smaller and it was harder to read, but this way was... you can see I still have that gap where the player frame is now, my health bar. That gap is still there and it fills up with whatever I feel like putting in it at the time. But this one has stood the test of time with a few variations here and there. And that we're around the loop until we get to what I have today. So this has been a journey through the history of Nevers UI. You can see that different pieces of it throughout the years have come and gone and made their way here. You'll see like that pretty one I had when I was on the Alliance side. That's where I got the idea for putting these health bars separate. And I still have that gap right there like I was talking about. And I've gotten it a little more refined and whatnot, and some prettier things to make the buttons stand out and all that jazz. But it's been quite a ride, and I've been messing around with it for a good while. So let me know what specific things you want to know about the UI, if there's like how did you do that or whatever, because there's a lot of things that have changed over time, and almost everything that is in any of these iterations is still possible with one add-on or another. So it's not like you can't still recreate some of those old ones. And if you want to know how to do a particular part, just leave a comment below and I'd be happy to go through and answer a bunch of them once they pile up a little bit. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed some answers to some of the questions, and good luck with your UI doings. Okay, thanks, bye.